Hello, 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 welcome back to Hunter Tune. Today we got the eBay Turbo Civic up on the lift, and I got an O2 sensor bung welded in, and a sensor, if you guys watched the last video I made with the what to check on your eBay Turbo Kit car or whatever, you guys saw that the O2 bung placement was wrong, so I actually had to weld in a new bung where I could get a sensor in it. So now I have my wideband sensor installed, and we can get it up onto the chassis dyno. I also fixed the bolt that was backed out on the suspension back here. So I did get a new nut and washer back in there. So this is all tightened down, should be good to go. So yeah, I'm gonna get this thing off the lift and onto the dyno. All right guys, another thing that I'm going to do before we even put the car on the dyno, so the time on the dyno is spent less, is we check the spark plugs. So we got to make sure we have the right spark plugs and spark plug gap for the turbo combination. Usually when you do a turbo and you add boost into the cylinder, it blows the spark plug out, and you have to close up the spark plug gap to not get misfires. So if you did just turbo your car and you can't get the thing into boost because it just keeps falling on its face or breaking up a lot, first thing to check is always the spark plug gap. We do want to step down a heat range or two. If we're adding more power and more heat into the cylinder, we want to have the spark plug a little bit more recessed up in the head. What I usually do for a lot of these run-of-the-mill eBay kits and stuff like that is we go 2 steps colder on the plug to a BK7R or a BKR7E, I mean. I run it in pretty much everything Honda related up to, like, you know, 300, 350 horsepower. Above that we usually step up to the 8s, and then above like 550 or so we go to 9s. And then obviously every like 150 horsepower ish you want to step down a heat range typically. So these are the spark plugs that I pulled out of the engine. These are a factory NGK plug. So these are a ZFR5. So these are a hotter plug. This is the factory heat range. They're a little bit sooted up, and the gap is pretty big. These would have definitely blown out if we would have put boost to it. We would have been spitting and sputtering because the spark plug gap is too big. So I'm gonna measure the gap real quick with a spark plug gap tool. So if we take our tool here, you can see our gap is about 42 thousandths. So we want to take that gap and almost go more than half of that. So 42 thousandths, way too big for a turbo car. And there's a lot of myths out there where, you know, guys say if you step down the spark plug gap, you're going to lose horsepower. That's a crock of shit. You can run, you know, 15 thousandths plug gap or 100 thousandths, and it makes the same exact power. If you guys don't believe me, go watch Richard Holdner on YouTube. He does a bunch of weird testing like that, spark plugs and, you know, different types of spark plugs, blah, blah, blah. I just run cheap BKR7s. These are a basic NGK copper plug, and I gap them tight at like 18 thousandths, and I chuck them in pretty much every single one of these Hondas. If you do go tighter, like an 18 thousandths gap, the spark plug is also going to last longer because the gap will take longer to burn the piece in the center, which when spark plugs go bad, a lot of times they go bad because the gap gets too big, and then they start misfiring because they can't jump the gap any longer, because after all the heat cycles and stuff with the plug, the center will start to wear away and the gap gets too big. So I've been such a cheap ass on some cars that have 250,000 miles on them. They need spark plugs. I'll literally just pop them out, gap them down, and they're good to go. And I just run basic copper plugs in like 99% of everything I own. I don't really see a benefit to you know, going to like an iridium or something like that unless your coil unplug. So we got these guys gapped down to 18 thousandths, 18 to 20, and we're gonna throw these things out, or probably put them in the car or whatever if the guy wants to keep them. So yeah, I'm gonna get these chucked in, and then we're gonna get the wideband plugged in and get this thing strapped onto the dyno. We're also gonna check all our fluids, coolant, oil, stuff like that. All right guys, now that we got all the fluids checked, The new spark plugs are in and gapped. We're gonna get this thing fired up and we're gonna see how close the tune-up is. It does have a chipped OBD1 ECU in it with a jumper harness, and there is no check engine lights, so that's a great start. I always tell guys, you know, if you can't get your car running that good, you got to make sure that there's no check engine light, or at least verify why it's on. A lot of people just guess and be like, oh, it's just the O2 sensor or whatever, when really it's the map sensor or the TPS or something actually important. So always verify why your check engine light is on, if you have a check engine light on. And when we're testing the ECU and stuff, we want to just cycle the key forward, make sure our check engine light goes on and then flashes off like it did there. I'm going to demonstrate one more time. So I have the key completely off. I go to accessory, and then I go to the run position. All the dash lights come on. And if you don't have a check engine light bulb that comes on, a lot more than likely the previous owner of your car probably yanked out the bulb, and you definitely want to get a bulb in there. Just take it away from like the seatbelt light or something like that and pop it in the check engine, because it's a great diagnostic tool. And I did get the wideband hooked up, and you guys can probably guess, this thing's stupid rich. So it is running, but not very well. We're 9.2, 9.5 air fuel. If I rev it up, 9.7. Higher RPM, it's okay. You can hear it spitting and popping a little bit. So we gotta see what the heck's going on here and tell the computer that we have this new map sensor and these new injectors. I'm not exactly sure what tune is on this computer. This is just how it showed up. So now that I revved it up, it's actually cleaning up quite a bit. So it's running like a 12.0 and it's idling a lot smoother, but that startup was a little rough. So I'm gonna get my ECU plugged in and get a base map on it, and then we'll pick up to you guys in a second. All right guys, so I did get the car up and running a little bit better, but no matter what I do, whenever I hit the gas, it just wants to fall on its face, and the map sensor like isn't reading properly in the laptop. So I'm gonna end up ditching this eBay 3-bar. I'm hoping the injectors are okay. I did not test these injectors. I'm just kind of assuming that they're okay. I hope they are. But I also could not get the car to lean out past like a 12.0 air fuel. If I took 5% out fuel-wise on the tune, it would go from 12.0 to 19. So that's kind of a sign of a weaker injector, or something's just not right there. I might pull them out and test them. I'm not sure. But for sure, I'm going to swap out for a stock map sensor. Because a 3-bar is really not needed on this setup specifically, because it is a log manifold and it's on pump gas. I'm not going to tune the thing over 10 pounds anyways, because 10 pounds is kind of my cutoff on pump gas, no matter what kind of setup it is. I don't usually tune stuff on pump gas above 10 pounds, personally. There's plenty of guys out there that do it, but especially on a stock motor deal. If it had E85, I'd throw 20 pounds at this thing, but we got to keep detonation out of it, and with the back pressure of these log manifolds and the 2 1/4 inch exhaust, I'm just doing preventative thinking here, and it'll be fine on a stock sensor. So I'm going to throw one of those on tomorrow when I get back out here, but I'm going to get home and edit the previous video, and yeah, we'll pick up you guys tomorrow and hopefully get this thing up and running a little bit better. All right guys, I'm still working on the eBay Turbo Civic, getting it ready for the dyno, and I threw the injectors that he had in the car. I actually went and took them out and I put them in my flow bench. So we're actually going to test these injectors and see if they're usable, or if the customer is willing to maybe update to something like the Hunter Tune 1000s or something like that. But first we're gonna see if these things are any good. So these injectors seem like they're all working. We're gonna do a flow match to see how close they match. But there is one thing that's a little concerning already because the spray pattern on them is super narrow stream. It's like a very thin pencil tip. There is no like spread to this at all. Decapped injectors are kind of the same way, but decapped injectors actually have a little bit wider of a stream. These things are literally like, I don't even know how to explain it, but they're literally just like a pencil tip of a stream. So not the best. That could also be part of the crew or the idle ability and stuff like that. But believe it or not, stock injectors actually have a very similar spray pattern. But with a injector that doesn't flow as much, they're a lot easier to, like, you know, dial in, even if they have a shittier spray pattern. These injectors also claim to be able to run down to very low milliseconds, like 1.1 milliseconds. And on my tester, I'm going to show you guys after the flow match, I was trying to get the injectors to run at a low millisecond, like with idle, and I could not get them to idle very consistent, and they would shut off, and I'll show you here in a second. So we can see here that our variance is quite a bit. You can see this one is around 70 milliliters, and this one is around 80, 85 milliliters, so we have almost 15% variance between this injector and this injector. These two centers are within about 5% of each other. So we have like a jump from 5, it goes, let's say 0%, 5% over, 10% over, 15% over. So yeah, the flow match on these, the eBay listing also claimed that these were within a 2% match of each other. So I've tried numerous settings on this thing to try to get them to match, and they do this same exact procedure every time. No matter what test I do, dynamic, static, etc., they're just repeating this. So don't always take the eBay claims as a real thing. You know, they're just kind of trying to sell stuff. And people may think I'm trying to do the same thing by, you know, doing this kind of stuff and like not wanting to run these injectors or whatever. But you guys got to remember, if you got something that's a little off like that, it's gonna get blamed on the tuner. So I try to go through stuff as thoroughly as possible, so so there isn't an issue with the tune. You know, like you're not going to be able to find somebody to blame at the end of the day. And if you have something like this, you have something to blame. If the last thing that was done was a tune, you blame the tuner, you know. So I try to just like be as thorough as possible and just, you know, run through stuff, really. So I can also, like I said, this is the match, it's pretty far off. We're also going to test low millisecond operation. Yeah, they're starting to shut off. Right around 2.1 milliseconds. 2.3, you can hear that they're good. Listen if you can on the camera. Do you guys hear the change in pitch? And this one's completely like off now, it's not even spraying. 1.7, they're pretty much all shutting off already. So when I was trying to pull fuel out of the tune, they were running at like a 12.0 air fuel, which was probably over 2 milliseconds. And when I went to pull fuel out of it, it probably dropped the injector millisecond down to, this 1.8, 1.7 area. And it literally, the air fuel went from 12.0 and you pull 5% out of it and it went to 18.0. So that just shows like maybe they're shutting off at low milliseconds. There is some ways around this, but I want to put my parts on this car and show you guys too. And I also told the guy, because I kind of felt bad, like, hey, these injectors are a little screwy, whatever. I'm gonna throw in a Hunter Tune fuel rail for him, a set of Hunter Tune 1000cc injectors and top hats and wiring adapters. We're gonna get rid of those wire in between the connector style adapters, and we're gonna go to the fail-proof ones. And we're also gonna throw a fuel rail on it. This fuel rail actually got returned to me by a customer that purchased off my website. He said that it leaked. I don't know what leaked, but we're gonna find out. We're gonna throw this rail on. It was a returned one, and I pretty much just told this kid, like, hey, it's your lucky day. I'm gonna throw in a free Hunter Tune fuel rail, and just gonna make sure that this fuel rail doesn't leak. It's probably just an install error, but I still refunded the guy his money. And I got the fuel rail back, so I'm gonna use it on this guy's car. All right, guys, so back out at the shop. I kind of talked the customer into ditching those eBay injectors, and he ended up picking up a set of mine. I got a set flowed for him, and I told him, because I felt bad, because the parts were kind of bad that he bought, that if he bought a set of my injectors, I'd throw in a fuel rail for free that a customer actually returned because he said it was bad. But so I got all of it installed. I got the fuel rail installed. Everything is looking really nice, as you can see here. With the Hunter Tune injectors, I did have to shim the rail up a little bit to accommodate for the top hats. But other than that, everything is in and leak free. And I also swapped out his eBay 3-bar for just a factory Honda map sensor. And I just put a base map on it. Put the PCB over there or something for now. I did just put a base map on it, and I do have the wideband plugged in, so we're gonna see how this thing runs. Got my chip burner over here. I just burned a base file onto it. Let's get it all fired up here. See how she runs. Gotta make sure that check engine light goes on and then off. Perfect. Wow. That thing started like factory. How close are we here? No frickin' way. Look at that, guys. Almost perfect. Oh, wow. Holy crap. It actually has throttle response. Previously, you guys like this headliner? I think it's kind of cool. It's like I'm in something in space or something. Before, when I would rev it up, it would still needs a little tuning. Before, when I would rev it up, it would go really lean because the map sensor wasn't moving with like when the vacuum changed on the map, it wasn't actually changing on the tune, so like it would go really freaking lean because it thought it was cruising and not at like mid throttle or whatever. But let's take a listen to this thing. What do you think, Roxy? You like it? You like it, baby? What do you think? What do you think? She says, good job, Daddy. Good job. Idling a little high while it's warming up still. We ain't got no fuel leaks down there or nothing. So yeah, I think she's ready for the dyno. I'm gonna get it backed on and get it strapped down, and then probably swing back out here tomorrow. It's like kind of late tonight, but I figured I'd get out here, at least get the injectors in and see how everything was doing. I'm stoked. This thing runs freaking awesome. I wonder if it has a TPS code, because when I give it throttle, it wants to die, and it gives me a check engine light. I'm gonna just rev it quick with the car off. Yeah, I don't know. It is getting a code when I revved it. Hopefully it's not like distributor or anything, because it does have a eBay distributor on it too, so we're just gonna end up replacing all of it. I'm really hoping it's not like a CYP or anything like that for the crank signal or cam. I don't know. I'm gonna call it a victory for tonight. We got the injectors in and fuel rail. I'm gonna come back out here tomorrow, get a fresh start, and we'll pick up with you guys then. All right, guys, so I did get the car up and running with the new injectors, the new fuel rail, all that kind of stuff, and it was idling perfect. Everything was great, and when I revved it, you could see that the tach like glitched for a second. If you look back on the video, you can see I rev it and the tach just kind of bounced, which is typically a sign of a distributor issue. And then it would throw a check engine light. There is some wires by the jumper harness that were like cut and, you know, just not in the right spot maybe. So I'm gonna check out the jumper harness when I get out there to dyno tune it. But it's 90% of the way there to be ready for the dyno. But you guys know, working on these cars, and you know, they're all freaking at least 20 years old by now, and they've probably been through about 47 different owners. So you never know what the last guy did, etc., etc. It's kind of the adventure we all take when we buy something like this, or we build one of these cars. If you're not stripping it all the way down to nothing and redoing it all yourself, you kind of don't know what you're getting into, no matter how much you're looking at it. So I'm gonna get back out there. We're gonna get this thing on the dyno, hopefully figure out whatever the reason the check engine light was popping back on for. And yeah, you guys will have to stay tuned for the next one. Hopefully we'll get it tuned, making some good power, and ship it back to the customer. So thanks for watching this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button. Subscribe to my channel if you guys haven't been here before. And ring the bell notification if you are subscribed or going to subscribe, so you don't miss out on any of my new videos. I have a ton of awesome content coming soon, and I can't wait to show you guys. But have a great night and a better tomorrow. God bless. We'll see you later.